I'm Polish, as your friend said, and I'm a forester. I'm probably first forester who spent 1.5 years in the Antarctic. If not the first forester, then first Polish forester, and not first Polish forester, then first Polish ginger forester. Right? Who spent 1 year in the Antarctica? Who cares actually if it was first or not first? But let's start this presentation from one important thing. When I started to have these presentations, I discovered that people have got a problem with the names, with 3 A's. Arctic, Antarctic, and Antarctica. People usually use it really randomly. When they know that you are somewhere in the polar zone, they always call it first A, right? Arctic, Antarctic, whatever. It happens pretty fast, so I'm sure that you guys know exactly how it is, but let's just in case repeat it. So Arctic is in the north. It consists of this biggest island in the world called Greenland, many other islands, and northern parts of the continents of South America, North America, of course, the Europe, and the Asia. On the other side of the world, we've got a anti-Arctic, the Antarctic. The Antarctic, it consists of Antarctica, the continent, the 7th continent, plus the islands, plus the cold ocean all around. It's called the Antarctic, and I spent exactly there 1.5 year. Okay, so what we think when we think about the Antarctic, what images do we have on our minds? Probably first image will be this one, a penguin. Second one will be this one. It's completely white area, right? Not exactly completely white, because quite often it's really blue. Blue as icebergs, blue as the glaciers, blue. The third image, fourth actually image, will be probably a polar bear. But it's completely wrong. It's completely wrong. There are no polar bears on the other side, on the south, right? All of them live in the north, but they cannot cooperate with penguins. So the nature just divided the world and sent one there, the other there. The fifth image, the one of my image when I started to think about going there, when I heard about the opportunity of going there, was this one. Explorers, polar pioneers. So I started to think that if I will go there, I'll be one of them. Of course I wasn't. Of course I wasn't. So how did I get there? How did I get there? I got there by coincidence. Provoked coincidence. How do I provoke these coincidences? It happened a few times in my life. I got to South Sudan by coincidence, to many other places in Poland and in different countries, right? So I provoke it like this. I'm just quite open. I talk to everybody, everywhere, in the public transport, on the streets. If people are, not looking at me like I'm crazy, I start conversations. And beside the social aspect of it, it allows me to exchange a lot of information. I take something, I give something, I give advices, I give the information, and I get the information. And one time, I got the information that there is a Polish expedition. I didn't even know that we have the station on the other side, right? The Polish scientific station. But I got this information, and it was so interesting that I started to browse the internet and look for more information. And how surprised I was when I read on the internet that there is a chance to apply for everybody to work on the glaciers and with the wildlife. So then I started to think really quickly. Peter, you're a forester. You was born in the middle of forest, basically. You grew up in the middle of forest with no people. It was exactly like that. And you know a lot about the nature. You travel. You spend several months abroad and you weren't homesick so badly. So I started to convince myself that I'm perfect guy to do this job, to work with the wildlife. And I sent my CV, so enthusiastic, but Polish scientists, they were not so enthusiastic about it, and nobody called me at first. Nobody called me at first, but after some times the phone rang, and they asked me if I want to go. Someone quit. Someone just quit 1 month before the expedition, and they were just against the wall. They didn't have the time to find anybody else, so they called me, a forester. So forester said, yes, of course, I can go anytime. And they said, okay, you have 4 weeks. So after 4 weeks of preparation, a lot of preparations, because you have to run the tests on you, medical tests, and you have to buy all of the equipment. They didn't give me anything, basically. I had to buy everything. They give me a little bit of money to buy it, but it was it was the middle of summer in Poland, and it's pretty difficult to buy something for heavy winter that time. So I was running, preparing everything, and I prepared. And then 4 weeks later, I was boarding, on this ship. Everything went, what happened here? Everything went pretty fast, so I didn't have even time to think about what am I exactly doing, where am I going, and other thing. It really was like that. So luckily, we spent 40 days on this ship, traveling 28 kilometers per hour, something like that, to the other side of the world, right? And it was enough time to think, where am I going? And this was the last opportunity to jump out and run away, but I figured out that it wouldn't be the best idea. So, what did I figure out? The adventure. Of course, the whole only trip to that place was the adventure, so I was completely sure that I'm going for more. And the second thing was the nature. As I told you, I was born in the middle of forest. Basically, my parents were foresters, so I love the nature, but I know the nature where the trees are, right? And I know Polish nature, and I have no clue about this place where are no trees at all. So I decided it will be kind of interesting thing to get from it. And the third thing was the test. I wanted to test myself. How will I survive in a place where are really limited group of your friends or not friends? People are just randomly sent there. I didn't know anyone. So I just wanted to run this test. And now I'll tell you about what surprised me when I finally got there, when I finally got to the Antarctic. And we will start from the Antarctic station. Thinking about the Antarctic station, I thought that it will be something like a space station. I don't know where I took it from, but you know, no people, no trees, space station, full of full of scientific equipment, full of sciences, so serious place, explorers and everything. Yeah, I thought that it will be like that, but it didn't. Everything looks like in Poland we call it pegier. In communist time, it was like a national farming thing. In Ukraine, I think it's called, yeah, radhosp or something like that. And it looks exactly like it. It's pretty far from space stations, right? Inside, there's no equipment actually. There was one tiny place where there was a little bit of equipment, but usually inside it looks like more or less like kitchen, like a mountain shelter, right? In the, I don't know, middle of Carpathians. It's good that it looks like that because it's really easy, much more easy to survive there. So next, spatial navigation. It doesn't matter if I'm in the middle of forest or in a big city. I never get lost. I never get lost, basically anywhere. So I thought, but It was completely different in the Antarctic. One day, we went outside, and one of my friends, on the very beginning of the expedition, my friend asked me, "So Peter, how far is it from here up to there?" So I said, roughly 500 meters. He started to laugh and said, "No, it's 2.5 kilometers." I didn't feel it. I was completely lost, right? And then he asked me about this front side of the glacier. How high is it? And I wasn't so confident anymore. So I said something probably between 15 and 70 meters. Because 70, 75, maybe 80 is the highest in the world. So I just haven't clue how high is it. And he told me around 30, 32. So why is it so difficult to estimate how high is the wall? Because you see, we don't have here a point of reference. No points of reference. No trees, no houses, no cars or whatever. The figures that we know how tall they are, right? So, luckily, everywhere in the world you can find Americans. Or unluckily, depends, right? On which part of the world are we? But these are 3 Americans, our colleagues, our friends, who are just crossing the glacier. And the average American have got a 160 centimeters. She, 3 girls actually, 160 centimeters tall. So to measure the glacier, we take them, so we take one, and just use her as a measure line. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 20 Americans, high wall, so it gives us 20 times, we have to multiply by 160 centimeters, so it gives us around 32 meters, right? And everything is much more easy with Americans. Okay, the thunder. What do you do when you hear the thunder? You've got a thunderstorm, you hear the thunder, you enjoy. Yeah, I do. Yeah, I do too. So I had a lot of time to enjoy it there, but there's no thunderstorms. Each time I hear the thunder, I look up on the sky looking for the stormy clouds. But in that part of the world, there are no storm clouds, there are no storms. So what was it? Glaciers, of course. They're calving, they're breaking, separating, falling apart, and you hear the thunder quite often. And each time, despite I knew it, each time I heard it, for the first 2 weeks, I heard the glacier calving. Each time I was looking for the clouds. I just got used to it in our world, that the sounds always comes from here, not from there. It was really difficult to forget about it. Now icebergs. My imaginary iceberg looks like this. Like a huge sheet of paper. And you can find it. You can find it in the world, but you can also find this shape and this one and the waves and something like this. You can find basically every shape, every form you can imagine. So now I'm not thinking about a sheet of paper. I always think randomly about random shapes. What else? The weather. When we have pictures, when we have postcards, when we read the articles about the Antarctic, we usually have this kind of landscape. Beautiful weather, perfect visibility, mountains, icebergs, everything, right? When we read the article in the National Geographic about the people working on the glaciers, over the glaciers, the picture attached will look like this. When you watch Discovery Channel, the picture is like that. And my picture, in my brain, in my mind, after my experience, 1 year experience working over the glacier, my picture looks like this. Of course, all of the photographers, reporters, they go there, they sit in the base for 1 month and wait for the weather window. When the weather is good, they're jumping out, they're running all around, taking pictures, coming back to home, and my picture, based on that what they sent to me, is like before, right? Days like with the clear weather, with no wind, during the whole expedition, during the whole first year, we had only 15, from 15 up to 18 days without the wind, when the weather was nice and clear. Of course, there were other days when it was windy, but yeah. In here, this is actually the movie. I will start it pretty soon, but I've got a small request. Just please be quiet, completely quiet. Don't move. Take a breath and listen how the Antarctic sounds when there's no wind at all. It sounds like this. Do you hear it? When there's no wind, when we are not talking, not moving, when there are no penguins, it's completely quiet. There's no such a place in the world except, I don't know, the radio studio, where it's completely quiet. Of course, like I said, days like this are really rare. And usually it's windy. And quite often the weather looks like this. This is my window view. If you will open it any farther, you will lose it. You will never find it. We can make it a little bit louder. The weather changes within 20 minutes. So if you will leave the station for 1 hour or 5 hours, sometimes you have to walk back in this kind of weather conditions. The gusts, the wind speed in there can reach 250 kilometers per hour. To give you perspective, in Poland, so probably in Ukraine too, the highest wind, the fastest gust is 120, 130 maybe at the mountains 160, but that's it. Oh, and this is my wall. Shaking. And it shakes 3 days, no breaks. And I forgot this one, I don't know how it's called in English. The stoppers? I don't know. That thing that you can put to forget about the wind. Okay, so what's next? Wildlife. Wildlife. Everywhere else in the world, animals knows us. They know that we are predators, that we hunt, that we kill, so they are afraid of us. Each time you come close, they always run away. But not there, not the Antarctic, because people never lived there. This picture was taken 1.5 meters from this Weddell seal. The picture. And now I will show you the movie, so you will see how it reacts when it see me. The reaction is like this. It doesn't care at all, right? It doesn't care at all. And in here, we've got a situation. You see, we cannot touch them, we cannot feed them, we cannot tame them. But in this situation, we had to find a compromise, because this is my toilet. The only one. And it can lie here for 3 days. No breaks. But it's still a wild animal. Try to do it in Europe, right? If you are a photographer, oh Jesus. If you are a photographer and you want to take a good picture of the wildlife, you really need expensive long lens, right? In the Antarctic, there's no need. You can come close with any camera and take good pictures Of course, you have to remember that you can't come too close, because they look nice and quiet, like pets, but they are still wildlife, and they can hurt you pretty much. Actually, this one is yawning, but okay. And on this picture, I think it needs no explanations, right? It looks like it looks. Okay, so we are close to these guys. So I'll tell you a few words about penguins right now. Penguins are probably everybody's favorites, and we think about them as a little cute birds, little cute animals. There are cartoon characters, right? And yeah, that's what I've been thinking about it before I got there. I didn't know, actually, that they are obsessed. They're really obsessed about pebbles. They can find it anywhere. They dig, and they try to dig out from the snow, from the snow. And every pair of penguins on the island thinks that every single island, and there are millions of pebbles, every single pebble belongs to them, only them. So when there's no other pebbles all around, they argue. And if it doesn't work, they fight. We know exactly what these two are doing. I'm not quite sure what this one is doing, but it does. Okay, so when they're not okay, they're always interested in pebbles, but when they're not doing it, when they're not running with messing around and running for pebbles, they scratch. We call it scratch. They use one leg and then the other. Some people call it sex. Anyways, then they have kids. They have kids. Small chicks, they fight about, there's many things, but we don't have time to do it. But what else do we think about penguins? We think that they are nice birds, as I said before, but we always see them as black and white birds. And it's also a mistake. It's also a mistake because they are really white and nice when they jump out of the waters, but when they stay on their rookeries, on their colonies, they usually look like this. And this makeup is made of mud and think. This thing. If you do the mixture of mud and think, you have this effect. And this effect stinks like a hen house, like a chicken house. You work with them, you come back to the station, and everybody all around knows that you've been there, right? So let's talk about the colors. What are the colors of the Antarctic? We said that at the very beginning that white color as a snow, blue color as ice, and the third color, guess, what's the third color? Black? Yeah, but I didn't think about this one. Gray? Not exactly. Very characteristic thing. Gray, green, brown, no. Red. Red. You see, living in a big cities, we often forget that death is part of life. And the animals cannot forget about it because they will starve to death. So they kill each other, and on this pretty white and blue landscape, this red thing, the blood, is all over the place. You can see that skuas are stealing eggs, skuas are cleaning out the beaches. So do petrels. Petrels actually are diving. They're diving in the dead animals to clean the beach, right? The way they do it like this, and that. And you can see that red color almost everywhere. Okay, so now I'll tell you a few things about my year in the Antarctic. What did I do there? Among those penguins and carnivorous. I was shoveling. I was shoveling, removing the snow from the glaciers. It looks like it, but in here I'm collecting samples of the snow. I have to dig a deep hole and just take samples from it. I drill holes where I will establish a glacier measuring equipment. I set camps for the geologists. I was amazing time in the year, and I of course made a little bit of extra money by taxi driving. Oh, actually, it's a really good skill to drive taxi there. People always ask you, and they like you because they want to be first. And then after summertime, after five months of the summer, winter came. And it started with 75% of us left the station. There was 40 of us, 38 exactly. And for the winter time, for 7 long months, there was only 8 of us that stayed for the winter. And it was much more quiet, it was quieter, and darker. And let's come back to my test. I thought that living there for 1 year will be, there will be a lot of time, there will be a monotony, I'll be separated from the outside world, and I was really curious what will happen with me, but nothing happened. You know why? Because there was the internet. And I'm addicted, right? I don't know if I'm just addicted or it was more like that I was afraid of that I will be separated. So each free time, every single minute, basically, me and 4 of my friends, we were just running to spend all of the free time with my friends, but on the other side of the world. And I didn't have time to experience the Antarctic. Luckily, after 1 year, I moved there. This is like you see what it is, small cottage, and it's pretty far from our main base. You are out of the radio range. There's the electricity, 1 hour per day. There's no hot water if you will not boil it. If you will not bring it also from the streams, glacier streams. So in that place, in this building, I spent exactly 4.5 months with one other older than me lady. And we wouldn't survive probably if we wouldn't have so many sweets. But we survived that. And what was the purpose? Why did I spend so much time there? I was when the weather was good, I had to just go outside and count my neighbors. Count them, take pictures, measure their eggs. What else? When I show this picture, people are sometimes ask if these are supplies. If this is food. No, but it's not food. I just tried to not. I had to count them. These are juveniles, like sea elephant kids. So we had to also, of course, count them. And juveniles, these are juveniles. They are, I don't know, 2 months old. And if you will get the heaviest one, you can get 4,000 kilograms even. So it's as big as this, as long as this house, right? Okay, so let's come back to my list. With the things to do. The adventure. Of course, I had a perfect adventure there. What about the wildlife, the nature? You see, it's really impossible to not learn about the nature that are living among them, right? I spend much more time with the wildlife than with people there. So I learned a lot about completely different environment, and it's not possible basically to learn about it so much if you're here, if you're not experiencing it. The third thing was the test. So I've been thinking about the different tests, but the main, outcome is that no matter how far you are, if you have access to the internet, you cannot fully experience the place. So next time I'll go there, if I'll ever go there, probably not, but if I'll ever go there, first thing to do will be just to cut the plugs, cut the cables, and get rid of it. Because I know already that it's really difficult for me to separate my life from the internet. I'm trying, but I'm still trying. Last few words. You see, what you think and what you get. The assumptions about the world are usually shaped by the media, the internet, the society, the culture we live in, right? And I think that it's really good to remember that oftentimes those assumptions are just very simplified version of the reality, and they can be really quite far from the truth. Thank you.